Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Daniel Lease podcast. Today's guest, when I was growing up, I never thought in my wildest dreams to do a job that he went on to do, and day in, day out, put his life at risk for the sake of other people. And not only that, also be an integral part of the team, which saved many lives and goes on to then be one of the most decorated snipers in the British Army. And since then, after he's left the army, he's gone on to do great things. He's pretty much a professional podcaster now, and he shares his story of his life in the army and kind of the side effects that come with having such a violent job as well. But he's now the founder of the Maverick Start School. So he helps other people out there with PTSD. And he's also wrote a book about his journey in the army, and also one that he's most recognized for, which is The Longest Kill, which was the Guinness World Records longest kill up until a few years ago. He served in 10 tours and was in the army for over 23 years. Wow, 23 years. And today he's going to come on to the Daniel Lease podcast and share his story and just shed light on people out there that may be going through the same situation as him, and just ways to get through it, and just know that they're not the only ones. So hold on tight to your seats, because this is a podcast that I have been looking forward to for the last month or so. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Daniel Lease podcast, Mr. Craig Harrison. How are we?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me on board.
No worries. I mean, you're hot in demand from the podcasting kind of world. You've been on some of the biggest podcasts in the UK. So hopefully we can live up to the standards on this one as well. But I'm really excited to get into your story. But I always like to start off straight away with a question that's going to get the juices flowing. But why at the age of 16 did you choose the army? Out of everything you could choose, you chose the army.
I think because I heard of stories of people saying that the army help you with your education. If you do a course, like if you're a sportsman, the army will stand behind you 110%, and you just progress on to be a better sportsman.
Yeah.
But I joined the army to be a farrier originally. That's why I joined the Household Cavalry, because of the horses and all that, because I've been riding horses since I was a young lad and I wanted to carry on that. But where I lived in Cheltenham, there was no prospects of being a farrier or riding horses, because it's expensive, isn't it? Keeping horses. So
Yeah.
I joined the Household Cavalry to become a farrier, really. And then obviously my face didn't fit in the forge when I went to do my assessments and all that. Plus I was a bit dyslexic as well. So from there I went to the green side, because my regiment split into two. There's ceremonial.
Yeah.
Trooping the colour for the Queen's birthday parade, different state parades and all that. But there's a green side where it's forward reconnaissance, where you drive around the little scimitars and Spartans and Sultans, and that's why I became a sniper. And I just excelled from there.
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it? Because, despite obviously the army, I had a very similar kind of upbringing, and we'll obviously go on to your story and stuff, but obviously school wasn't really for you, wasn't for me. And what I've found, especially from doing over now 53 episodes on the podcast, is the system of school, the guys that always typically do go on and do really special things with their lives are the ones that actually struggled in that system. But then, I mean, years ago when I was at school, they never used to recognize ADHD, and, you'd always be categorized, wouldn't be like, well,
Yeah.
you're not clever, so you're going to go with the rest of the kids, rather than mixing it all up. But then you go on and achieve what you achieved. And it's like, that kid that was the teachers used to look at and think, oh, he's not going to do anything with his life, ends up being an integral part of the British Army and goes on to do fascinating things.
And I wish I could meet them teachers again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like have a reunion and go, this is what I've achieved now.
Yeah, 100%. I actually trained to be a chef, and I did that for like 9 years of my life. And I'll always remember when I went for my first ever interview with a recruitment consultant after I decided to quit the industry. And the woman was like, you may as well just be a chef for the rest of your life, because you're unemployable. And again, it's one of those situations you wish you could just go back to that person and be like, hey, listen, this is what I've done. This is what I've achieved. Obviously going to go on to your story. And for anyone that hasn't, listened, or because I consume books by Audible, so I like listening rather than reading, but I listened to your book and a lot of your podcasts as well. And obviously in the 23 years in the army, you've obviously seen a lot of devastation and a lot of things. And one thing that I want to obviously touch base on first, which is usually where we start, but is kind of family. and family life at the very beginning, and how your relationship was with family and friends.
I had a good childhood, and my mum I was very fortunate to have horses when I was younger. So I was very fortunate. But I believe because I had horses at a younger age, I didn't really progress to be a child, if you know what I mean. Like going out with your mates, going to cinemas and going out after school, playing sports and all that. I had to do the animals when I got home. I had to do the dogs. I had to do the horses, the goats, the chickens and things like that. So my mum was quite Victorian like that. That's what we say in England. It's quite strict when it came to certain things like that. And yeah, I've lost contact with my mum now because the way she was when I was a child, But it's funny because in the army, you meet a lot of interesting people and you have a lot of friends as well. I'm in contact with no one from the army. I left not under a dark cloud, but the army upset me in a way where I thought, I don't want this anymore. I don't want to be reminded. I've got one friend that I've known since I was 5 years old, and we still meet up now. We still have a laugh and a giggle, and that's like, it's like 40 years on. We're still good friends, and I think that's quite valuable. But family, good childhood, can't rock it, But now, as an adult, I don't have anything to do with my family or friends and all that, and I quite like it like that because I'm a loner. Always have been a loner, and sniping suited me down to the ground because I was a loner.
In the book, you talk a lot about how your mum was quite hard on you, like when you used to come back from the army, and it would almost be a bit of a kind of like, you got to stay with me. Like, how did that kind of affect you? Because obviously it being your mum, you kind of expecting to be kind of welcome back. But did you have bad feelings from that? Or was it something you just shrugged off your shoulders?
Yeah, I kind of shrugged it off, really. My mum didn't really break the apron strings. When I left. And when I come home again, she expected me to pay rent, give her money and stuff like that. And I thought, what am I doing? I'm a grown-ass adult now. And so every time leave came, I used to stay in camp. Lads used to go home, I used to stay in camp. And I liked it like that, Your bills are paid for, your scoff's paid for, and I thought, if I get in, I'm like that. If I'm in a situation I feel uncomfortable in, I just I segregate myself from that situation. And that's what I've done with my family.
Yeah, no, I completely see where you're coming from, because it was weird when I was younger. I used to be the social kid, always out. But as I've got older, I really do love my own time and my own kind of space. Yeah. And my brother, we look the same, but we're complete opposites. But I really, really understand what it's like now, because he's a bit of an introvert and I've become a bit of an introvert. And sometimes going into public places, you just feel like, just feel uncomfortable, and you just like, I just want to get home and relax and, be at one with your surroundings. But you had quite a good relationship with your brother as well, right?
Not when we were childhood. Like I don't speak to him now, because it's just weird. My whole how things happen and the way things come, where I've just segregated myself from my family. Yeah, my brother joined the army. He joined the Royal Artillery, the King's Troop, to the ceremonial side. And I don't really speak to him either. It's sort of like, he's my brother, he's blood, but it sort of faded out. Do you know what I mean? So
you've both gone on and done your own and got on with your own lives, and you do your own things now. Yeah,
exactly. My support, my advocate of life is my wife. And I met her at the right time, and she's become my family. She's become. It'd be different if I was single, probably, but no, she's become everything that I need in a family, and I don't need anything else.
Yeah, 100%. So, tell us a little bit about school life then. So, you obviously were a bit of a misfit. You didn't really like it. Did you enjoy anything about school?
Do you know what? I love textiles, like sewing on the sewing machines and things like that. I was the only boy in the class. They were all girls, but I loved it. And I love sports, but other stuff that I found quite boring. So I used to just bunk off school, not go. go to the countryside with my mate Tom and just muck around, But yeah, school, isn't it? They always say
Yeah.
school's the best time of your life. Make the most of it, because
It
when
was
you're
the
an adult,
worst. Yeah.
yeah, but you think, nah, I'm quite happy the way I am, the way things turned
Yeah.
out. It's
Yeah.
funny actually. I just moved my storage unit this morning, and I found my old certificates for my old GCSE exams, and I failed every single one of them, and all
Yeah.
F's and G's, and I'm like that. Look at me now, what I've amounted to now, to what
I know.
to what I've become,
Yeah. Yeah.
to what I
I
want.
mean, it's something that we talk about loads with all the guests, and I think school. Obviously, I can't speak for school now because I don't go to school, obviously. But back then, I think school was just, they're breeding you to be a part of a system, and that's all it's really there for. I mean, some of the stuff that, I mean, you're probably different because obviously being a sniper and calculations and mathematics plays a lot into what you used to do. But half the stuff I learned at school anyway, I've never come back to. And I'm the same. I left school with one GCSE
Yeah,
in French.
yeah,
Exactly. I mean, nowadays, I do reports all the time, but I've got a computer where I just put in the figures and it creates that chart for me. So you don't
yeah.
even have to
That's it.
you don't even have to utilize those skills anymore because computers do it for you.
Yeah.
But when it came to kind of like the end of school life and you did your GCSEs and stuff, was army always a bit of a topic?
Yeah, since I was about 10 years old, I knew I wanted to join the army. My brother joined first because he's a year older than me, but it was always, don't worry about, I wasn't worried about my exams or mock exams, because I wanted to join the army. And that was my total focus on joining the army.
Yeah.
So what become of my exams, or what become of my school life, or me as a younger child, didn't really matter, because all I did was wanted to join the army. And my mum was a big supporter for that as well, and my grandfather as well.
Yeah, because your grandfather, obviously, I mean, again, for those that haven't checked out your book, we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But in the book, you talk a lot about your granddad and how fond you were of him, and your relationship was with your grandfather.
Yes, yeah. You know, my mum was a single parent family. She eventually got married at the end, but we were old enough to do our own things. But through my younger childhood, it was a single parent family. And my granddad was mainly my father figure as well. He taught me, the birds and the bees. He taught me survival. He taught me different things, taught me how to
Yeah.
drive a car, stuff like that. And stuff, that fond memories that I'll never ever lose.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, my grandfather, and I'm sure with your grandfather as well, obviously would have gone through the time with the war. So, a part of their life was mandatory service. And obviously nowadays you don't have to do that. So I think the people that were grandfather age now, it's like they're a breed of people that unfortunately we'll never ever see again. But they were legendary. I mean, the same for you as I'm sure it was for me, is the stories that my granddad used to tell me about being in the Navy when in the World War, and the stories are just, like you say, it's just the dying breed of people, unfortunately, because they were the most legendary ones.
No, I was just going to say, in that generation, they all wore suit and ties, didn't they? As soon as they
Yeah,
got up in the morning, they put a suit and a tie on, and that's their
yeah,
casual wear. And I think that's quite, I quite like that in the old generation.
yeah, 100%. I mean, funny enough, I actually watched I don't know if you've watched the film Legends,
Yeah,
where it's the film on the Cray brothers, and I was actually saying to my friend, I was watching it the other night, and I said, guy's going out on the first date and he's wearing a suit and a tie, like that's how it should be. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
The
Proper,
old school way.
proper gentleman.
Yeah, exactly. So when you decided to join the army then, so how was it starting out? Like, how was it getting used to it? Did you kind of was it like, that was my destiny, you settled in straight away? Or did it take was it a bit of a culture shock?
Not really. I think because, yeah, what it is that if you join the army and you've experienced civilian life, you're going to find the army harder, because you're going to pick up little traits, and your attitude's going to be different. Because I was a clean canvas when I joined the army, I knew no different. I've never had any money in my pocket. I never done this, I never done that. So during the army, as a clean canvas for them to build on, I sort of fitted in pretty well,
Yeah. And where did you do all your training? Like, did you ever do any training abroad, or was it all mainly in the UK?
No, we did it in a place called Purbright. It was the Guards depot at the time, so it was, and the Household Cavalry, because the Household Cavalry's part of the Guards division. Coldstream Guards, Grenadier Guards, Welsh Guards, Irish Guards, and then you had the Household Cavalry. And so we were looked dimly on because we're apparently horse shaggers, because we love horses and stuff like that. So we had a bit of a stigma to us when we first joined the army. Oh, you want to be a horse shagger? You want to join the Household Cavalry? And they made it quite clear through training, because it was the Guards depot, that we were the lowest of the low. Household Cavalry were the lowest of the low, and got picked on quite a lot. But like I said, you're a clean canvas, so you just brush it off and get on with it.
I was going to say, how does somebody the size of you get picked on? Because you're a big old boy. You're pretty handy with your fists. So
yeah. Well, I remember my sergeant used to make me stand at the platoon sergeant. He was an Irish Guard, and he used to make me stand at the end of the bed in the morning, and he used to come in, and I had to shout, "Morning, Sergeant," and he hit me on the head with a paste stick, with a brass stud on my head. And every night, he used to make me stand at the end of the bed and shout, "Good night, Sergeant," and he'd smack me on the head again. Now, I did a year's training, so that's 365 days of getting hit on the head twice a day.
Twice. Jesus.
Yeah. And because I was just Household Cavalry, I was a Blues Royals in the Household Cavalry. So, so that's how dimly they look down on you.
Jesus. I mean, obviously there's a part, this is something that I wanted to discuss later on, because obviously part of your story is just, I just would listen to it, and I just thought, if that was me, I literally would just clean them out, because I wouldn't have the control to be spoken to or treated in that way. But again, going back to what you said a second ago about being a blank canvas, did you just think that that's how people treated you? That was normal life?
I thought being in the army, I thought it's the army, it's the best of the best. They're what they're doing, they're getting the civilian out of you. They want you to be the best. And I thought that was all natural, and I thought, I just get on with it,
Yeah, but you picked up a bit of boxing, right? In between this time in the army, if I'm getting my times correct, you did a bit of boxing as well.
Yeah, I did a bit of boxing in training. We sort of got really looked after. Your gods, the boxing team in training, and we did it for about 3 or 4 months, and we training, and then we fought the artillery, I won my bout, and I thought, fucking hell, I quite enjoyed doing this actually. At a younger age, I never got into much scrapes. So I got mentally picked on. So they would taunt me from a distance, and that was more strenuous than getting hit in the face or being beaten up. Some days I'd rather that happen than getting taunted, So, I realised that I was pretty good with my fists. So, and on my first leave, I put them to use, I think.
Well, that was for me. That was, I think, do you know what? Not that also, just to kind of say, like, so before you came onto the podcast, I'm best mates with my brother. I'm about to be the best man at his wedding, and out of all 53 guests, I've never seen him be so excited about me talking to you, because I was like, he goes, so who have you got on the show coming up? And I was like, so there's a guy that's written a book, and he was a British sniper, and he's like, shut up. I was like, what? He's like, Craig Harrison's coming onto your podcast. I was like, yeah. He goes, mate, I love that guy's book. I was like, really? And he was like, yeah. He's like, and that's when I realized how much of a global impact you've had on people, because my brother's not from the army, he's not from the military, suffered a little bit from depression. But he said to me, he was like, I was hooked. As soon as I heard the story, I was hooked. And he said, when he was at work, he's a carpenter, he said he used to listen back to the story, and he used to listen back to chapters over and over and over. And he said, I was so enticed by his story. And also as well, how somebody like him that's been through what he's been through to share kind of like his stories on what he's been through, and then also get through it, made him realize that also he can get through it. And you think to yourself, that's so many people that will think like that. And there's so many people online as well. I saw some of your interviews that you did with other podcast guests where people were commenting saying, that guy saved my brother, or he saved this and saved that. So yeah, I mean, but anyways, we go back to the story. So on your first leave, you put those fists to use. So just to tell the listeners what actually happened.
Well, basically, those people that used to taunt me, it was a family, and it was a gang that used to go around where I lived in Cheltenham. And I remember going into McDonald's and they were in there, and I thought to myself, because on your first leave, you're in the army, you're in the British Army. So you're a man. You're a man now. Even though you're like 16, 17 years old, you feel different. You feel like you're stronger. You feel more confident. And the army's done that to you. So when I saw him in McDonald's, I didn't feel timid. I didn't want to walk out, and I said to my best mate, just wait here, will you? Watch the front door. And he got the front door, and I got my own back. I kicked off in McDonald's with them. They were running out the door screaming, and I pushed some down the stairs. I hit them with a mop handle. I got my own back. And luckily, no police were involved. And I remember legging it down the road with my best mate, and I felt relieved. I felt exhilarated that I've achieved, that what I've done.
Yeah.
It was just a weird feeling to get your own back on, self-satisfaction, as they say.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, like you say, I think, as an adult, those situations arrive, and you kind of, like you say, you deal with it a lot more. But as a child as well, it's like all that pent up frustration and anger, you don't know how to deal with it, and that doesn't go anywhere. Like you say, as you mentioned, you would rather have been beaten than mentally tormented, because one thing that happens with bruises and scratches and cuts, they disappear after time, they heal. But what happens in the brain is there permanently, and it's one of the hardest things to actually erase. So like you say, when you get that final release of, just give them a good old hiding. But did you ever get in any trouble for that at all?
What, for doing that? No, not at all. I've been in trouble with the police, don't get me wrong, for fighting. Could you think, I've joined the army, I'm in the you get paid each month. I've never had that amount of money in my back pocket. We used to call it your weekend millionaire, and you're like, way, I've got money in the back pocket. And then
it's on me.
Exactly. And then things happen, you get drunk. I'd never been drunk in my life as a child, and suddenly I'm in a pub getting drunk. But then something happens, I kick off, I have a fight, and I thought, fucking hell, but I didn't want to go. And I got myself into trouble with the army a few times of doing that, because if you get yourself in trouble with the police, the army get involved, and then then you start getting yourself a blacklisted name, and you're troublemaker. And I didn't want to get kicked out of the army, so I knew I had to buckle down at some point,
Yeah. Did you carry on boxing at all after that first bout? Or was it one and out?
No, it was just one fight we had of 4 rounds, I think it was. Yeah, and that was it. And joined the regiment, because we're in so much high demand, the ceremonial side plus the armoured side, you haven't got time to do a boxing team or start boxing. But no, I did a bit of prize fighting, and I was a bit of a bad boy there, and I was getting money for that. Every Wednesday I would go down a place in London, and you could go there and fight for money, and I did that for 3 years. And I think one reason they took me out of London to Windsor, where the armoured side was, is to get me out of that role of just fighting all the time, because I didn't want to get in trouble as much.
And that was happening all whilst you was on the break from the army then?
No, I was in the army. I was So yeah, so in the evenings. So
Oh wow, in the
like
evenings. So it wasn't even on the kind of like vacation periods.
no. So I was in London, and then and I thought, well, I'm gonna get myself some money. Met this guy who said, "You're interested in making extra money?" I thought, yeah, and then I thought I was all right boxing, but prize fighting is a total different sort of, no rules barred sort of thing.
Yeah.
And realized I was semi good at that, making money, getting a bit of dosh in my back pocket more than the others. But I used to
But
turn up on guard. Go on, sorry.
you had to lose a couple of fights though, didn't you? Because if you won too many, you got yourself in trouble.
Yeah, they think you're a bit cocky, So always win. You have 3 fights a night, always lose one, and then you're okay,
Yeah.
But if you win all 3 fights, you get done over outside. I learned the hard way. So
Oof. So you won all your fights in one night and then got handed a bit of a beating at the end.
the first time I went now, I got beaten up. I won 1 fight, I think, and then longer I went now, I got more better at what I was doing, and then I sussed it out that the hard way. I won 3 fights one night, and I was so exhilarated. I went outside and I got done over, and all my money got stolen. So
No way.
you learn the hard way.
Yeah.
Always lose a fight.
Yeah.
So if you get into it, Dan, you always lose a fight, mate. Top tip.
I don't think I've got the mental strength to get beaten up. So, but yeah, no. So when was it? So you've obviously been in the army for a little while. You did all the training. When was it? And how long was it until you went on your first tour?
It was 95. I went on my first tour. I went to Bosnia, and Bosnia at that time had calmed down a little bit. It wasn't. It was more patrols, and I was a driver, so I was just driving around the scimitars or the Spartans, depending on what troop I was in at the time. And then I ended doing 3 tours of Bosnia, and so they weren't. They're not like tours where you think, "Oh, I've seen a lot, I've done a lot." They're more peacekeeping, hearts and minds of keeping the former Yugoslavia, the Bosnia, out of
Yeah.
a nice steady, peacekeeping role.
Yeah. But it was in Bosnia that you actually saw your first dead body, though, right?
It was, yeah. He was leaning against a tree, he'd been shot on the forehead, and I remember I felt nothing really. He was just a body leaning against a tree. He had a tracksuit on, and I remember each morning there was a foul smell in the camp every morning for like months and months, and we figured out what it was, that there was a tip behind our camp, and they were burning bodies in mass graves
Wow.
behind the thing. So seeing more dead bodies plus burnt dead bodies plus the smell, it does affect you. But then you're in the army, so you put it in the back of your head. You don't think about it because you need to do the other tours. You need to carry on doing that tour, so it doesn't affect you in a way.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
call it? Compromise it or something. Put it in your mind.
Yeah. It's like basically hides it in this subconscious
Yeah,
part of your brain, but it's always there. Yeah. I mean, that. I
yeah.
mean,
You
that
don't
must
want to
have
seem
been.
to be the person who's got a problem. In them
Yeah.
days anyway.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, again, those days it was literally like that, wasn't it? It was like you couldn't show any form of weakness, otherwise it wasn't down
No.
to mental health. It was down to being a bit of a pussy. But
Yeah. And you think that mental health like PTSD wasn't really recognised, especially in the First World War. They called it shell shock. And then the officers used to shoot you in the trenches if you never went over the top in the trenches. And it never got really highlighted until the Second World War. That's when PTSD started coming into a role. And then people started understanding it more, But
yeah.
when I was in Bosnia, you didn't get really looked after. Your mental health didn't really get looked after. And it's the one word that I hated, the sentence, man up. You need to man up with it. absolutely fucking hated that word, man
Yeah.
up. So you do. So you do end up manning up after a while. I know it sounds contradicting myself, but you end up what they say, man up. So you think, okay, then put it in a box, put it in the back of your head, move on to the next task. You know.
Yeah, yeah. It is one of those things now, isn't it? It's like if only if only today's times would have been recognized back then, because things would have been a lot more different then. But so you did 3 tours in Bosnia,
Yeah.
and that was, you were mainly there just keep peacekeeping then, and then after that, how long was it until you went off into Iraq?
Basically, that was 2000 and, of course, you're asking me now. 2009, 2000, yeah, 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was Afghan. So we're talking 2005. Yeah,
Yeah, because
2005.
you went to Iraq first before Afghan, right? From
Yes,
my
I did. Yeah, I
recollection
did
from
two
the
tours.
book. Yeah,
Yeah, I did 2 tours of Iraq.
yeah,
And do you know the worst tour that I'd done was Kosovo? That's the
yeah,
worst tour. You know, through seeing mass devastation like mass graves,
mm,
um, young babies in skips and stuff like that. Horrendous stuff that you have to witness that another human being could do to another human being, you know.
yeah,
But then again, you have to put it in a box. You have to put it behind you. You know, you have to put it in the back of your head. You know,
yeah.
same with Mac.
I mean, I was only a child when all that was kicking off. So I really, the first war that I remember was, like you said, was the Iraq War rather than Kosovo. But how long did the tour of Kosovo go on for then? Did you stay there for months or years or?
9 months. So
Wow.
we
So
went.
9 months of devastation.
Yeah, we went there as a fighting force, and the idea is when you become a fighting frontline soldier, is you extract out, and then more soldiers come in to do a peacekeeping role. So you're
Mm,
not. So the person that was shooting you in a farm 2 days ago, next minute you're giving him a football and some pencils and saying sorry to him, you know, and that's how it happened. We stayed in a peacekeeping role after a combat role, which we shouldn't have done that, you know. So looking at the locals that were shooting at you and we were trying to save
yeah.
were it was horrendous, absolutely horrendous.
And what was that? I mean, what was the cause of that war?
It was that Serbia went over um, to invade Kosovo itself, and they took over the main city of Pristina,
Mm,
and so it was all political again, and so we had to kick the Serbians out of to push them over their border and get the Albanians back into their own country.
yeah.
So you know, but that wasn't necessarily a fighting role. Very, very rare fighting. Um, a few contacts now and again, you know, but it was mainly digging mass graves up, taking bodies to the morgue, going through skips, and like it was horrendous, horrendous, you know.
Yeah. And I mean, like when times get tough, obviously a lot of people think about quitting. And I know you did. Correct me if I'm wrong. You did have a short break from the army, but was there any like doubt in your mind that you were like, "What the fuck am I doing? I need to get out of this, like this devastation on a day-to-day basis."
When you're on tour, you don't really think because you're so busy, you know, bouncing and bouncing and doing different tasks. You haven't got time to think. It's when you come off tour and you've got a bit of alone time and you think,
Mm,
fuck me, I saw a lot on that tour, you know, and a lot reminds me, and the smells and different and the images that imprinted on your brain really affect you. But I thought to myself, there was no aftercare when you come off tour. It was
yeah.
horrendous. So that's why I got out, because I needed a breather, basically, because we did, um, yeah, it was just horrendous, you know. And like
Yeah.
I said, I needed a breather. I need to have a break from it all. And I became a gym instructor in a local gym in Oxford. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. And that break came after the Kosovo trip, right?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, and then I was out for about 8 months, 9 months. But it's weird because when I rejoined, the lads at the regiment thought I just got a posting out somewhere. They didn't realise I'd left the army, you
Yeah.
know. And
And was
obviously,
there,
I re.
yeah, was
Go
there
on.
any like, was there any like complications on rejoining, or was it literally just like, oh yeah, we know this guy, welcome back in?
That's exactly how it went. They said, "Oh, it's Craig Harrison." And he said, "Yeah, we'll have him back. We'll have him
Yeah.
back." You know, and I rejoined, and I think being a civilian in Civilian Street after leaving the army, I matured more. Then I rejoined the army more mature.
Yeah.
You know, I think I was in the regiment for 4 weeks, and then I went
Okay.
straight to Iraq.
Yeah. And when it comes to like that time off, um, was it the sort of situation where you were just like, do you know what, the grass isn't greener? I actually enjoyed, although it is quite devastating, I like that lifestyle. I like the way it is. I
Yeah.
like being active and stuff. Or was it mainly down to the fact that, you know, you couldn't actually deal with what was going on in your head and you just needed to be back in the chaos to deal with what was going on there as well?
Exactly what it is. You feel like you've got no purpose. Like I still suffer now with feeling that I've got no purpose in life. And even though it's the army was a massive impact of 23 years and I've been out since 2013, I still feel that I've got no purpose because the army gave you structure. The army gave you a purpose, you know, and things were done for you. Food was paid for you, your bills were paid for you. So you didn't have to do anything, just follow orders and do your job to 110%, you know,
Yeah.
you'll be.
So when you went back into the army, you did 4 weeks. I mean, what sort of training did you do to go back in? I mean, was it anything? Was it just like kind of like back into normal life, or was it you had to kind of like reintegrate with that society?
Well, in England, we have the TA, like Territorial Army, like reservists. And I
Yeah.
was going through the SAS TA at the time. So my skills and levels were still up there, you know. And so when I rejoined, I didn't have to go through any retraining because I was training for the SAS at the time.
Yeah.
So there wasn't much need for me to do any retraining. So, and they were more than happy to have me on board in the squadron, you know, going to Iraq.
Yeah. And what division did you join when you went back into the army?
I joined the A squadron, the Household Cavalry.
Okay.
So that was the one I went in.
Yeah. Yeah, because again, this is one of the points that really highlighted out to me is when you obviously went to Iraq. Um, you know, they were killing people, and then correct me on the terminology here, but it's the SSM, right?
Yes, yeah.
He was making you bury all the dead bodies. It was like dead body, bury it, dead body, bury it, dead body, bury it. Like,
Yeah.
how did you deal with that? Like,
Same again. You put it in a box, you put it at the back of your brain, you know. And it was weird because the Americans went over first, and then we went over into Iraq, and there were bodies everywhere, and they'd been run over by tanks. They were like really mangled up and things like that. And my SSM was a bit of a religious person, and he used to say all the time, "Right, stop here." He used to get out, and he goes, "Right, I want that buried." Or I want that put in a body bag so it can be picked up later. And we're like, ah. And then the Iraqis dug big ditches and they filled them with oil and they set them on fire. Even they had bodies in, and we were made to fish them out, put them in bags, you know. And same again. You same with Kosovo. You put it in a box. You put it in the back of your brain, you know.
yeah,
So.
but I mean, forget the whole religious element about it. Well, did it not put you guys in jeopardy because you're in a war zone and he's making you go and dig bodies? Like, I mean, surely the safety of of you guys is more important than burying a dead body.
It was, and there were rounds coming everywhere, as we went over. So,
Jesus,
and I remember we
what?
went over. They knocked all the heads off the oil wells and lit them on fire, and the sky went black. So tonight, when you go outside, that's how dark it was, but it was daylight, because the blackness of all this oil wells on fire blacked out the sun, and it was just horrendous. And we were getting shot at all the time, but luckily, thank God that no one got hit, at the time. We hid behind our wagon a few times. He never got out of his wagon once. He never got out once. It was always the driver and the operator to get out to bury the bodies. And we thought to ourselves, hang on a minute, this is fucking wrong. He's got his head down and we're out this wagon picking up his body, but same again, it's discipline, isn't it? You get told from a ranking officer or a ranking NCO, senior NCO, to do something, and you do it,
But again, I'm not very equipped with my army knowledge and so on, but do these guys do some hard graft to get to where they're doing, or is it kind of like a bit of arse licking which gets them to that point of being able to do and say whatever they want at that point, or make it to that kind of promotion level?
It's time served. So, you got to do courses. So you become a lance, you become a private. In my regiment, it's corporal. Everything's like corporal of the horse, lance corporal of the horse, because sergeant in Latin means servant, and the Queen didn't want servants protecting her. So she gave our regiment a different rank structure.
Yeah.
And so an SSM would be a company sergeant major, will be a company corporal major. He's progressed up the ranks, and it's time served. So I left as a staff a warrant officer. That's where I left that. So it was different, and I could have gone on further, but I left the army. So
yeah. It was just something that I constantly just reminded me of, just the fortune that, I live in, because, if I've got beef with a colleague, or if there's something going on, you can address it and you can say your point of view. But to be in that situation, and bearing in mind, the corporate world, think about it, it's like someone makes a bad decision, it's not going to, affect your life. But having that, and someone making a decision, and their decision could actually mean life or death for you. I take my hat off for the fact that you was able to be disciplined enough in that situation without just going, do you know what, lads, should we just pop this one off and we can just crack on with our mission? Because like you say, when it comes to your life, I think it's just very hard to comprehend how you can even take orders like that. But
you think now that goes back to my childhood. I've joined the army again, gone to Iraq as a more mature person. As a childhood, I didn't get out much. I didn't progress much. I was very timid. When my mum said she told me to jump, I'd say how high. So that sort of stemmed me when I joined the army. And then it's led me to this position I'm in now in my life, which is a stronger person, a damaged person, but a stronger person,
Yeah. And that damage, when was it that you really started to notice that it was starting to really play a bit of an effect on your mental health?
Do you know when I got blown up in Afghan?
Yeah.
When I got blown up in Afghan. And do you remember I always talk about these boxes? I'll be talking about these boxes blown apart. So from that point, I got blown up by an IED. Everything was spewing out. All the thoughts are spewing out. Everything, but I didn't notice it. I thought I was normal still, but my wife noticed it first. Me being quiet, me isolating myself from things, arguing all the time, feeling that I'm in trouble all the time, having no purpose in life, feeling suicidal. I thought I was just getting on with life. She noticed it first, and then the army noticed it. You know, when they used to go on exercise after the tour, we used to play an enemy role for the other regiments, and I used to think I was still an Afghan, and I was taking it to the extreme. There was no limit to what I was doing, you know. So yeah, and they noticed that I was getting carried away on certain things. So so my wife noticed it first, and then the army noticed it.
Yeah. And what came first? Was it? And I remember in the book you obviously talk about the day that you met your wife. But had you already became a sniper at this point, or were you going through your training?
I came back off my first tour of Iraq, and I remember I was going to go to Bedford in England and to meet a friend of mine who was also in the army, and he never tipped up. So I went to the pub on my own, and that's where I met my wife. And 18 years on, we're still together, and so, yeah, she was with me when I was going for my training to be a sniper. Yeah, she was.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously at that point, like you say, you just got back from Iraq, and I always think, I mean, it's because it's something that I've never experienced. I always used to think, because my granddad used to always say to me, he told you, especially in the later years, he always used to say to me, Daniel, when I met your nan, I knew that she was the one. Like when you saw her, like, explain how the feeling went. Like, explain what it felt like. Like, was she the one from the very beginning before you'd even spoke to her?
Yeah. I saw her legs first.
Yeah.
Saw her legs walk in. I looked up, then I saw her long hair, and I thought, she's beautiful. And then, I mucked her around for the first year of seeing her, because I didn't like the way I was feeling. It was different from other girlfriends that I had in the past, how I felt about her. And I thought to myself, is this love? If this love, I've never been in love before. And yeah, it was. And she's bowled me over. And every day she bowls me over with her love. And I love her so much,
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? It's like they always say, don't they, behind every strong man is a strong woman. They're just really, and without it, sometimes it's, like you say, it's like and you talk a lot about this in your book and a lot in the podcast is, without her, like, would you even, still be here today with everything that you've been through? So I loved the part in the book where you talked about training to be a sniper. It was like me and you was in the pub chatting, and you was telling me this is a story, because I'd be driving along and people must have been looking at me and they be thinking, like, what is that guy listening to? Because I'd like chuckle with laughter when you talked about funny moments and stuff. And one of the points in the book which I loved, where I was like, yes, like, no holding back, was when you built the hide. And you ended up having to take a shit in the hide, and you stunk the whole hide out.
Yeah.
And I thought that is classic. Like, how, like, in all the situations, that is like one of the situations where you're like, oh shit, we're not gonna get found because of what we've built. We're gonna get found because it stinks.
This is a smell. Just follow your nose and you'll find where mine is. Yeah. Because it's all to do with taking everything away with you. And you in a hide, you've got a shit in cellophane, and then put it in a Tupperware tub, and then put it back in your backpack, because you really cramped and not much to me, you can't move around much. So I stunk everybody out. Yeah.
And your buddy, who you did everything with, Elliot, what did you meet him from the very beginning? He was like the first guy you got paired up with, or was it someone that you met along the way?
No, he was at the regiment as well, and he done his. I was the first sniper in the regiment, and then he'd done his after me, and I gave him a pre-course and what to expect and things like that. So he went in. Me and him were at the same level. So after doing a basic sniper course, and then we did our platoon commanders, and then we did our section commanders, and then we did advanced snipering. So we did like other courses to progress. So we couldn't go any higher in the snipering world in the army because we were already there. you know, and you get a thing called a 1 and a 2. So the number 1's usually the better shooter, and the number 2's the better at the mathematics. But me and him were at the same level, so we always took it in turns who was the 1 and who was the 2. So yeah.
Good partnership.
Yeah, good guy, really good guy.
And when it comes to the kind of final testing, so just explain, because obviously I've listened to the book, so I know exactly how it went down, but tell us about that last moment where you had to go through the exercise and what you had to do to actually pass your snipering course.
There's different aspects of snipering. So basically, when you start snipering, you have to pass the shooting phase first, and that's 4 weeks. 4 weeks of shooting from near, mid to long range. So if you fail any of them, you're off the course. But if you pass them and then go on to the sniper phase, and you fail the sniper phase, you can go back to your regiment as a sharpshooter. So I passed all the shooting phase, went on to the snipering phase, and in my head it was just like a big game of hide and seek, you know. So you just gilly up, you put natural vegetation on you, you hide, and one of the last exercises was an A4 size white card would pop up, and you could be there for an hour, you could be there for half hour, you could be there for 24 hours, and this card wouldn't pop up. And then suddenly in your radio, you'll hear it pop up, and it'll go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, card down. And you're like looking around going, oh, fuck, where the fuck was it? I missed it. I didn't see it, you know. But luckily I saw mine, and it was, I can't remember what it was, a fluorescent J on a white background or something like that. And I radioed back to headquarters going, yeah, fluorescent J with a white background. Yeah, that's positive. You passed. And I was chuffed with it, you know.
Yeah.
But I was laying there for a good few hours, you know. And you start capping, you start drifting off, you start hallucinating. You think you're seeing things for your scope, you know. But all good.
Yeah, and the shooting exercise was a point that was spoken about quite a lot towards the end, because there was a shooting exercise as well, wasn't there, where you had to shoot some targets.
Yeah, the unknown shooting. So basically, you would see the target, and from that target, you had to figure out the distance, the size of the target, how far away it is, and where you're going to hit it. So, and then you'll have a spotter that will walk up behind you. He will give you 1 round, and then you went to hit that target with that 1 round. And luckily, I clipped mine on the edge, and the target went down. You know, targets will fall when hit, and it fell down. And to feel that, all that knowledge that I've learned in all them weeks, to figure out that I've just done it in my head, and I've achieved it, second to none. Feeling was second to none.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then, but not only that feeling of it, seeing it go down, what happened at the end when you passed, I was like, I felt such a feeling of happiness for you, because you went on and finished top of the class, and then also the rest of your the guys on the course as well voted you. What was the
most helpful and likable?
Yeah.
So every weekend that I had off, I would go back to camp, and I would go to the tailors in camp, and I would make my ghillie suit a bit better. I'd make my trousers a bit better, but also I would take their kit as well and help them out. If they were struggling, I would help them, you know. And what I used to do at night, I used to do a thing called dry training. So I used to lay behind my rifle, put a laptop at the end of the corridor, put a film on, and just sit there looking through the scope, watching a film. And that's what I used to do.
Wow.
You know, because I'll be laying there for 1.5 hours to 2 hours just watching a film. And every time somebody comes on, I'll put my crosshairs on them, and then I'd move across, put my crosshairs on them, and stuff like that. But
wow.
And that's what I used to train, and I used to teach the lads that as well, you know. And I used to help them with their fitness, because I used to be fit, as well. So I used to help them with their fitness. If they were struggling on a run, I would go back and help them carry their kit, or different things, because I'm a big believer in the buddy system,
Yeah.
and we're there to help each other at the end of the day. Yeah, they voted me most likable and helpfulest person on the course, which that was better than coming top student.
Yeah, I can imagine, because what we spoke about at the very beginning when we talked about school and the way the teachers and stuff used to look on you, and then that moment there, it's like, no, school wasn't for me, but this is my calling in life, where I can actually help others, but also be extremely talented and gifted at a certain trade.
Yeah. And I think if I'd have been a sniper at a younger age, I wouldn't have passed.
Yeah.
I think because my maturity was better and I was a stronger person rejoining, and plus I've been to Iraq, and I've seen things, I became a better soldier.
And how old were you at this point when this had all finished and you'd qualified and you got the awards?
I was 25.
Okay.
25. Yeah.
So still a young man,
Yeah, there were younger lads on the course that were failing because all they wanted to do is go out at night, go to the pub, instead of sitting there reading. Knowledge is power, as you used to say. Doing their guinea pigs, making them better and stuff like that. And that's what I was doing. Because like I said before, and I'll say it again and again, that my maturity was a better person rejoining.
Yeah. So you've then gone on and now you're a sniper in the army. How did that feel? Because you explain it in the book in such a fascinating way, because you've done all this, you're effectively an A-star student, let's call it, and then you talk about how much snipers are actually loners in the army, and that's how they get kind of seen upon.
Yeah, they do, because it's jealousy. That's the only thing I can describe it as. Because you've done a course that's second to none, your soldiering skills have to be 110, 120% better than everyone else's, and you become a better soldier. People are jealous of you because you get the better tasks. When you go on exercise, you get the better missions. When you go on tour, you get the better missions and the better tasks because you're a better soldier. So people seem to get jealous of you. So you become a loner, basically.
Yeah.
And I was a loner anyway when I was a younger lad, and when I was a child before I joined the army. Becoming a sniper fit me like a glove because I like being on my own.
Yeah, but it's quite funny, isn't it? Because although those people are jealous of you, when these people are actually in battle and going from destination A to B or whatever it may be, you're actually the one that's there scoping everything out, protecting them. So it's like they need you. It's like, it's a crazy mentality when you break it down, because like you say, you're such an integral part of their survival. So it's a crazy mentality when you think about it from a jealousy perspective, because when you break it down, you as a sniper, you're there to protect the soldiers when they're going from destination A to B to C, whatever it may be, and scoping out and obviously in your time, you've saved so many soldiers based on your actions as a sniper. It's such a weird thing to be jealous of, because you think to yourself, I'm actually just here to protect you guys. And rather than be like, if I was in the army, I'd be like, my man Craig, he's there to protect me. I'm going to keep him so sweet so that my ass stays alive when I'm on these tours. But yeah, just a weird mentality, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. That's the army for you, though. Either your face fits or it doesn't. And so, but yeah, my regiment, it was pretty cool. So they understood the snipers. You were like the tramps of the camp. You dressed like you wanted to because you're more professional than everyone else. You just got on with your job. Always out doing something. And you become a cool, strong ethos. Because there's always this 16 of you all together. Well, there's meant to be 16 of you in the regiment, as
Yeah.
snipers. You know.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so you're employed to kill people. Talk us through the first actual kill and like the emotions behind it and how it went down.
Well, basically, as a sniper, it's not your first role to kill someone. It's your second role. Your first role is to gather lifetime information of the battlefield. So you pass information back. You know, once you've passed that information back, and then you get the green light, you can take that target out, and that's your secondary role, is take that target out. And basically, you're sustainable on the ground for up to 72 hours to 48 hours you can be on the ground for. So basically, what I was in Iraq, I was in the desert, in the Maysan desert, and it was fucking hot. And we're in a thing called a MOG, a mobile operational group, and that would just patrol the desert. And we would get into some civilians' villages, and then we'd disappear into the desert again, doing hearts and minds all the time. Every time we was in the desert, we kept getting mortared and artillery, and it would come in fucking close. You know, we'd dig shell foxholes and we'd just hunker down in them. And we figured out every time we went somewhere, this guy on a motorbike was following us. He was dicking us basically. And
So he was the one. So he was the one behind. So he was following you. You didn't realize that every time you was going to these villages. What would happen when you went to the villages, though? What was the purpose of going there?
for hearts and minds, to make sure they had water, to make sure, you know, that to show them that the insurgents were bad and we were good. So if you stop growing opium, for example, you grow wheat instead, and we'll give you money for that, you know, and we'll protect you from the Taliban or the insurgents, Al Qaeda itself, and
Yeah.
but majority of them felt more protected from the Taliban, to stay with the Taliban, because, or the Al Qaeda, because they gave them more protection than we could. It was very controversial what we used to do, but this guy was radioing in all the time. Yeah, that this location here. Next thing you know, mortars would come over, artillery would come over, and we would be like that. Where's it? Fuck. Eventually, we worked out the guy on the motorbike, and I got the green light to take this guy out. He was about 675 yards away, and it's quite hard, really, because if you ever see films and you see people in the desert, they always look taller through the heat shimmer. You know, and when they walk closer to you, they shrink down to their normal size. And you get different types of heat shimmer that you've got to put in consideration when you shoot the round as well. But luckily, mine was boiling, so it was hot. So it looked like a boiling silhouette. So I aimed for the main center of mass, which would be in the chest, and I hit him in the throat. I missed my first one. Second one, I got him, and I hit him in the throat. And then I went over to his body to see if he had passed away, which he had. And the motorbike that he was on, the throttle was stuck in the sand, so the motorbike was revving like crazy. He had an AK-47 strapped to the motorbike, and he had a radio as well. And the radio was still tuned in to the Taliban, and they were speaking through the ICOM chatter, asking where he is, can they direct him? Because I had an interpreter with me who was translating what they were saying on the radio. So when this guy passed away and he was dead, he had maps on him as well, and he had maps of every location that we had been in. So every time we went to a different location, he would just jot it down on the map. So, and you could follow the route from where he had been to where we had been, mirror to mirror, you know. So,
And
but
did you ever find out from that particular situation where he was reporting back to, or was that unknown?
No, unknown. It was just on the matter of fact on the radio. What they do, the insurgents do, they put booby devices out. So then when the mortars happen, they're not actually there. They set timers up, like they use the washing up timer of a washing up machine, or they use water. They put like metal pads, one on the bottom, one on top. But when the water runs out and the two metal pads touch each other, the mortars will go off. You know, they're very, very intelligent how they do things. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we never found out where the actual sites were, but we got enough information off him to. But as soon as I did that shot, I felt that I was in trouble. I felt, fucking hell, I'm in trouble here. I've just killed someone. You know, somebody's going to tap me on the shoulder in a minute and go, "Can I have a quick word, mate? You just killed someone."
Yeah.
But it never happened. The taps on the shoulder that I were getting were saying, "Thank you for doing that. You know, good shooting, good shot." And it was, and then I thought it took me a good week to get over that that I'm in trouble phase. It took me a good week to get over it.
Yeah. And I mean, in total, how many kills did you actually do in the army when you was on tour?
I think about 80.
Yeah.
80, 78, 80.
And
within
those,
that's the mixture of Iraq and Afghan, you know, together.
And within those 80, what would you say is the one that sticks in your mind the most?
One I have trouble dealing with is, I still deal with it now, so I'd rather not say what it is, but I still traumatize me now still, you know, and I talk to my therapist all the time about it. You know, it's quite hard to come to terms with, but it had to be done. It had to be done, and if I didn't do it, other lives would have got lost.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm sorry about bringing that up. I don't want to try like bring any things back. But yeah. So then you went on, and obviously, you know, one of the things you're more renowned for and well known for is obviously once upon a time you held the record for the longest kill in combat. Are you okay to talk us through that kill?
Yes, yeah. I still hold it for that caliber. No one's broke it on that caliber. So it got broke by
everyone's had a more powerful gun, right? Or I mean, again, I'm sorry for explaining this in a terrible way. You can explain it in the sniper sense. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my rifle only goes 1,500 meters. That's it. That's the max it got calculated at to hitting a target. A 50 cal can go 4 clays plus. So basically, my rifle only goes 1,500 meters. That's the max distance it's calculated at. And then a 50 cal can go 4 Ks. That can go 3 miles on a straight trajectory. That can go 3 miles. So having mine beat by a 50 cal, doesn't matter. I still own it for that caliber. You know what I mean? And so basically, what it was is that an operation were going in to this village, and my tasks in the operation were to give overwatch, to watch the patrol going into the village, to make sure that they weren't getting ambushed at any corners or any vulnerable points in the village. And I could see the Taliban setting up everything, and I could see them in the village. There was about 10 of them, all setting up, ready for this patrol to go into the village, and they would open up and then kill the patrol.
Yeah.
So, and then on the ICOM chatter, I had an interpreter with me who was tuned into the Taliban radio, and he was saying to me that they could see the patrol coming in. They were going to wait till they get into the kill zone, and then they're going to open up fire on them and see how many people they could kill. And I thought, right, this is my job to give protection to the patrol going in. And then all of a sudden I saw a glint in the far distance, and I couldn't work out what it was. So I looked for my scope, and I realized it was an antenna of a radio, and there was a guy there with a radio, and every time he spoke, it would come through the ICOM chatter. So I worked out that he must be orchestrating the attack going in. So I set up my rifle. I told the patrol I'm going to open fire, and I fired 9 shots. It took me 9 shots to hit the compound wall. I did a thing called bracketing. So I fired my first shot and it would go low. Fired my second shot and it would go higher than my first, higher than my second, higher than my fourth, higher than my fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, hit the compound wall. And on the ICOM chatter, it said that I can't work with you anymore. I'm getting shot at from somewhere. So now the Taliban in this village are blind because I've just shot at this guy and he's got his head down and he's too scared to pop it back up again. Now, I didn't know that distance was 1.5 miles away. I didn't know that. So the day went on, the morning went on, and they got engaged. The patrol got engaged by the Taliban in the village. And I was taking out targets as well, protecting the patrol. And the patrol was trying to fall back into safe ground, into dead ground, away from the fighting. So what I'd done, I had 3 vehicles with me, and I told them to go into the kill zone to act as a barrier between the patrol and the Taliban, so they would get shot at. So which they did. They drove down and they acted as a barrier. The patrol got into safe ground, so they were okay. My lads were opening fire into the villages, getting casualties, killing the Taliban. And then all of a sudden it went quiet. And I couldn't work out why it went quiet. I looked at every single place where I engaged a target, and I couldn't see anyone. All of a sudden, it started. I could hear dig, 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 dig in the distance. Dig, 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 dig. And as I looked for my scope at my lads, all of them were on the ground, diving for cover. And I thought, what the fuck's that coming from? Dig, 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 dig. And I checked everywhere. And the only place I didn't check was where that guy was with the radio in the morning. I looked up and there were 2 Taliban guys there with a PKM belt-fed machine gun shooting down onto my lads. So what I'd done, I shot there in the morning, so I knew where I was shooting. So I fired my first shot. I missed. It took 6 seconds to get to the target. So when I fired my first shot, I'd count 1 banana, 2 banana, 3 banana, 4, 5, 6, and I saw the splash, so I missed it. So then I fired my second shot. So it took 6 seconds for the flight of bullet to hit the target. So I would go in my head, 1 banana, 2 banana, 3 banana, 4 banana, 5, 6, splash. And I saw it splash on the side of the compound wall. So I knew I missed. So then I fired my second shot. And as I fired my second shot, one of the guys stood up from behind the machine gun, and I hit him in the chest, and he fell backwards. And the only reason why I knew where I hit him is because we went to retrieve the weapon afterwards, and I saw the bodies, and I couldn't find the weapon system. It had already gone. They had stolen it. So as the second guy stood up, I was about to. I shot my third round, and then I moved my rifle across and fired a fourth round. So I had 2 bullets in the air at the same time. The third one missed, and the fourth one hit him in the side, and he fell down. And then from nowhere, an Apache helicopter came up behind me, and I could see the pilot, and I waved him onto where we were getting shot at, and he lased it at 2,475 meters, just over 1.5 miles.
Wow.
So, but I didn't know I had broke my world record, the world record then. I didn't know at all. I just put my thumbs up to him, and he put his thumbs up to me, and he went over to see if he could see any more Taliban to engage.
Yeah.
So, and then I extracted my lads back to safety, and then we carried on the mission for the next day.
Wow. And when did you find out about the kill?
On my medals parade, when we came back off tour. We came back off tour, and I spoke to a gentleman who's doing a story on my regiment for the local papers. And obviously, I being a sniper, they want to know about you. So I said, will this get censored? And he said, yeah, everything you tell me will get censored, but just tell me a story. So I told him the story about the shot, and he said, do you realise you broke the world record? And I thought, no, I don't. And I didn't care at the time. I said, no, I don't. Anyway, the day went on, and in the local papers, I opened it, and it was a false spread about me. And then it went to the media, like the major mainstream papers. My name, my wife's name, my daughter's name, where we lived, where I grew up, everything. So it was just all leaked to the media. So then we started getting death threats. They wanted to cut my head off for what I achieved in Afghan.
Wow. I mean, the media, like, this guy flat out just said to you, is it going to be censored? And he said yes, and just lied to your face just to get a story.
Yeah, it's basically when you say a story to anyone media-wise, it should go to a place called London District Media Ops in London, and then it gets censored. You can't do that, you can't say that, can't say that. And then that story gets sent back to the reporter, and then the reporter can look at it and go, okay, I'll put that in the tabloids. But it never went to London District Media Ops. It went straight to print. So everything, my cover had blown at being a sniper, everything had been blown up. So,
and I mean, when you're getting death threats, you're getting death threats from people in Afghanistan and Iraq, or you're getting death threats from people in England?
Fundamentalist Al-Qaeda in England. Yeah. They found a car in Birmingham in England lined out full of plastic, ready to kidnap me. And so me and my wife had to go in hiding for 3 years while everything settled down.
And did the reporter that leaked all this ever face any charges for that?
No.
Wow. What a pig.
Yeah. I mean, even though the story went to London District Media Ops, he should have known better not to put it in the papers. But he's a reporter. He did it for money. Hope he chokes on it. So yeah. And
when you went into hiding, did you have to kind of leave the army at that point and lay low, or you were still in the army?
I was still in the army at the time. Yeah, we went into secure housing, and then we had armed response call. My wife had a panic button on her, so as soon as she pressed that, she would get the police round to a location, like a GPS tracker, stuff like that. So yeah, it was quite big what we had, to be in hiding.
Yeah. I mean, 3 years as well is such a long time.
Well, it is, because in England itself, over 3 years, you lose your credit history. So when you come out of hiding, I lost everything. I couldn't get a mortgage. I couldn't get a credit card. I couldn't get a car or anything because I had no credit history because I've been in hiding for the last 3 years.
Wow. That's and then did you face anything else after then, or did you kind of go back to normal?
That was my last tour of Afghan. That was my last tour, and then I got medical discharged after that. So 23 years, and it took me half an hour to get kicked out. Yeah, not even a goodbye, not even a dining out, not even a handshake or anything. It was just see you later.
How did they? I mean, obviously, you spoke very briefly earlier on about the car explosion where you got blew up. Um, but again, if you're okay, can we just talk about that particular moment as well and how that also came about?
Yeah, we was on my colonel at the time. He wanted to go out and do a patrol. Now, in reality, as a colonel, you're not meant to go out because you're a high-ranking officer and you got a target on your head basically, and they would love to have a go at you. But he wanted to go out, and there was an operation going in at the time where I had to give overwatch again for a patrol going into the green zone in Afghan. Now, the green zone is a belt of green land that runs right in the middle of Afghan, and it's quite lush. It's like the jungle, basically. Yeah. And the Taliban love hiding in there and ambushing. So it was my job to watch the patrol go in to make sure no one was following them or they weren't going to get ambushed during this patrol, which was a great success. You know, I engaged a few targets, and then it became about 4:30 in the evening, and it was the job of my section to lead back to Musakala, where we were stationed. So the colonel was with us, and as we went by this village, my lead vehicle stopped. I jumped out and I said, "Why we stopped?" Because it was 4:30. Become 5 o'clock or 5:30, it's pitch black. You can't see anything, you know. And I didn't want to be in the dark where I've just engaged targets in the middle of the night. So I said, "Look, I'll lead, follow me." And he said, "Okay, but I've got a bad feeling about this, Craig." And I said, "Look, mate, I'll lead. It's fine." And I didn't go through the village. I went around the outskirts, and then I hit an anti-tank mine, 30-kilo anti-tank mine, probably the same size as a dustbin lid. And it hit my driver's side, the right side. He lost his legs. And then it blew me out of the vehicle. And I broke both my arms. I broke my wrists. And that's when I got blown up. And that's when that wall got shattered. You know, all them boxes, they all got shattered. So everything that I experienced from Bosnia to Kosovo to Iraq started just flooding out from there. Yeah. And I felt different, but you got to man up, haven't you? You got to man up and get on with it. As they say, even though I hate that fucking word, but that's all they used to say to you, you know?
So,
and I, go on, sorry.
No, sorry. Carry on, mate, carry on.
Yeah, and I got took back to England. I was in cast for 6 weeks, and then they took the casts off, made me do 10 press-ups, and sent me back out to Afghan.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
How did you I mean, you've obviously been blown out of a car, you've broke your arms and your wrists. How do you get out of that situation? Did you have to get rescued by a different group of lads that came back and rescued you, or were you able to kind of pick yourself up and take yourself back?
I couldn't walk at all because the explosion hit me underneath as well. The shockwave made my legs go dead, so I couldn't feel my legs for the first week. And then luckily the vehicles that I was with called in the MERT, which is the air ambulance that came in, and I got casevaced onto the back of there, and then he took me to Bastion. So,
wow. And on the recovery for that, you mentioned obviously that's when everything started to outpour from all those little boxes inside your brain. But on the recovery, because you obviously got casts on and stuff, you can't do anything. So was that really where the mind started to play its trick on you, where, you know, you started to just think about different things?
I just wanted to be on my own, really. I wanted to be on my own. I didn't want to be around people, you know, and it was Christmas as well. So me and Tanya went to Tanya's mum and dad's house for Christmas, and I just wanted to be on my own, really. I didn't want to communicate with anyone. You know, you'd think I'd just been blown up. You know, I've got images in my mind still of everything, and I couldn't control it, you know. But I just thought it was just me having an episode, me having issues. that I'll get over it. It won't last long, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And then obviously, what led from then? You said you went back out to Iraq, Afghanistan. Sorry. How long did you stay there for?
Well, the second time,
So after you got out of the cast and they made you do the press ups, they sent you back out. How long did you stay out?
another 4.5 months.
Wow. And was that your last tour?
That was my last tour. Yeah, I did it. Um, it's weird. As soon as I hit the ground in Afghan, um, they stuck me on a ridge line called Panda's Ridge to sniper, and yeah, I didn't feel right in my head. You know, I was taking painkillers, just eating them because I was in much pain with my hands. My brain had a brain injury. You know, I was getting migraines all the time, but they still wanted me to do this job as sniper, but no one was listening to my needs. You know.
Yeah. So that 4 months must have literally been like hell.
Yeah, it made my wife. She was worried senseless about the whole situation.
Yeah. And did you communicate much with Tanya at that point, or was it just kind of like you just were just?
You know what? When I went out the second time, I didn't really ring her, didn't really speak to her at all. Plus, I was too busy. You know, I was in demand as a sniper. I was getting shipped off everywhere to do different tasks. You know, so I didn't really get to speak to her much. Words.
And
She knew. She was
yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Strong.
And when it came to being discharged, so you mentioned that obviously before that you got discharged for PTSD. So how did that all happen? Like what was the situation for them to kind of highlight, okay, there's something wrong with this guy?
It's because I was taking things too seriously. I was crying all the time. I felt lonely. I would go into the sergeant's mess and I'd just sit on my own and cry, you know, and I felt this can't be right. This can't be right at all. There's something not quite right, you know, but I just thought it was part and parcel of things, you know, of
Yeah.
me getting blown up. And like I said, it would just, I'd shake it off and it'd be better in a couple of days, you know. But as like I said before, my wife spotted it first, you know, through our relationship, and then the army spotted it. I got called into the MO's office, which is the medical officer's office, and they said, you know, we'd like you to go for tests. I went for tests in a mental health institute, and they found out that I had severe PTSD. Yeah,
And did they try and help you at all?
drugs. That's all they put me with, full of drugs, and it destroys your social life. You know, they put me on so many drugs that I was tired all the time and lethargic. It ruined my sex life. It ruined my life. It made me even more quieter. It made me suicidal, that I just wanted to commit suicide, you know. So because they put you on an antidepressant, it doesn't stop them suicidal thoughts. So they put you on something else as well as the antidepressants to counteract them suicidal thoughts. So you end up taking about 6 or 7 pills, you know, and then you, and luckily my marriage is strong and it still is strong. But I think if I was with anyone else, bar my wife, I wouldn't be with anyone now. You know, the fact she understood what was going on is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, what a woman. I mean, incredible from start to finish. But I mean, it's crazy
That,
because it's like they're trying to, rather than actually getting to the root of the problem, they're trying to suppress it. But if you try and suppress something, it's always going to come back.
yeah, yeah, and that's why there's so many homeless out there, homeless veterans. Do you know what I mean? Who suffer from PTSD because at the end of the day, you're just a number. I was just 225000479. That was my number, and that's all I was to them, a number. Bums on seats. And as soon as you're damaged and they don't want you anymore, they cast you off. Somebody's always there to replace you.
Yeah, it's disgusting, isn't it? I mean, I think and that's why what you're doing right now and talking about these things is so good, because it's getting mainstream media where hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people are watching your videos, and you're getting to actually talk about these things. And you just hope one day that, you know, they change the way they are, because, you know, I mean, realistically, they destroyed your mindset through what they put you through, and then there was no care in the world for you once, like you say, you weren't fit to serve. But with that all bearing in mind, do you have any regrets about what you did? If you had your time again, would you do it differently?
I'll probably join the Marines, if anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my soldier, through my history of the army, I'll do it all again. I'll do it all again. I miss it so much. Now I miss it so much. And it sounds weird, because you listen to these old guys in the Second World War always talk about the Second World War, you know, because that's all they've done. That's like me. When I talk to civilian friends that I work with, all I know is the army. I've got no civilian background. I can't talk about civilian stuff because I've never experienced it. Yet I've experienced soldiering life, you
Yeah.
know? So it's hard.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier on about obviously suicidal thoughts and stuff like that, and PTSD. I mean, how's that side of things going now? Because, you know, I've listened to some podcasts that you recorded years ago and over like the last year or whatever, and obviously you sounded, you know, still quite in a bad place. But from talking to you now, you seem like you're doing really well and you're positive. I mean, even the look on your face is like is different to what it was before. So, like, how are you doing now?
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I had my bad days. I had bad days more than good days,
Mm,
but I suffer from suicidal ideation, they call it. And I think about it all the time. I think about it when I wake up. I think about it when I go to bed, you know, but I'm not brave enough to carry it out. And people say, brave? And I said, yeah, because it takes out of you. It takes it out of you, you know, and I do suffer, you know, and I think majority of the time I wear a mask,
yeah,
and I wear a mask around because I don't want to infect people from my misery. I don't want to sit here now and be miserable because of my past. I want people to see me now. Does that make sense?
yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, 100%. And I mean, what is suicidal idolization?
It's when you think about it all the time. It's when it's constantly on your mind 24/7, without a doubt. You People think of happy stuff. I think of suicide, and that's how it is. And I'm on medication for that, and I take
Mm,
medication for that, you know, because it's not a nice thing to have in your
yeah,
mind. It
I
takes
mean,
over your mind, and it
do
makes
you-
you more quieter as well. You know, when you don't want to socialize, you don't want to infect people, you don't want to talk to people. You know,
yeah, yeah. I mean, I mean, like you say, it's something that you can't really comprehend, and yeah. I mean, is there an element of anger towards like the army because of everything that's happened?
oh yeah, massively. Just the way I've left. You know, and they kick you out and they don't follow up. So I could be hanging from a tree and they wouldn't have followed that up, you know?
It's a
They,
disgrace.
yeah, just like I said, you're just a number, you're just bums on seats, you know, you're just in the army for do the army. Once you leave, their
Yeah,
responsibility is done with you. Their aftercare is done with you. So,
yeah. Well, everything that you've been through and experienced, and you know, to be able to like actually sit here today and also talk about some of the positive outlooks that you've got on life, and helping others and speaking out about these things. Like I say, it's just a credit to you, and I really take my hat off to you. But let's talk more then about now. So you started up the Maverick Startup School. What is it? Tell us all about that.
basically, it's a survival school. So basically, you come onto the school and you just learn level 2 basic survival skills. It gets you out of the woods. Gets you off your phone, gets you out the house, and you sit there for Friday evening, Saturday evening, and you finish on a Sunday. And basically, all you do is chill out, relax atmosphere, bring some kit. If you haven't got kit, I buy it for you, and you just relax. And it's been a great success at the moment. People have experienced it. And it's not just for veterans who suffer from PTSD, it's also for normal civilians as well that are suffering, or civilians that aren't suffering. You know, to come along on the course, experience it. It's a good relaxation, as they say.
And how often do you do that?
If people ring up and they want to book a weekend, I give them a date, and they're happy with that date, then we meet up. And then I take them into the woods. The weekends starts from there,
Nice. And what sort of activities do you actually get up to? Because you say obviously it's like basic survival skills and stuff like that, but tell us in detail what you can expect from doing it.
Shelter building, fire starting, a bit of whittling, making a mallet, tent pegs and all that to get yourself used, confidence around a knife. We do tracking. We do fire starting, friction fire starting.
Yeah.
Flint napping. We do a bit of forging. There's a vast amount of stuff we can do. And I always ask the person on the course, what do you want to achieve this weekend? What do you want to achieve this weekend? This course is about you, And if they say, I just want to do, I want to chill out, we do that. If they want to experience something a bit harder, we go harder. It's all up to them at the end of the day. I work around the customer. I aim for success, not failure. That's what it is.
Yeah. Of course. And what location do you do this in?
There's a place where it's called Bishop's Waltham. It's near Portsmouth.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's 57-acre woodland, so it's quite big. And I'm allowed to use all that wood block, and we used all of it. And relaxed, chilled out.
Yeah. And how did the book come around?
So basically, I did my shot. I got offered to write a book, but I couldn't write a book about just a shot. It would be just one chapter. So they said, well, write it about your life. And I thought, what have I achieved in my life? I've achieved quite a lot. So I wrote everything, because when I did the shot, I was stood up. Everyone thinks I was laying down, but I was stood up against the wall when I did it. So I wanted to put everyone straight about the shot, and then I wanted to put everyone straight about my life as well, because everyone had different ideas of how I was brought up, how the training went, how sniper training, how the household cavalry are, the army are, and I just put everyone straight in the book. And it's been a great success, and everyone's enjoyed it.
Yeah. Did you ever are you able to keep track of where it's being sold and how many people have bought it and stuff like that?
I think I get royalties every 6 months from the book. So, and I still get them, and it's been, 7 years, 7 years, still selling.
Yeah.
So I must be doing something right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I said to you at the beginning, I spoke to my brother about the whole situation of our podcast, and without even mentioning your name, he knew exactly who you were. So it touches a lot of people. So, we've obviously, literally, I can't believe it's actually been close to 2 hours we've been chatting for, because I've just been so engrossed and fascinated by your story, and just you as an individual as well. But I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your day for just to speak to me and just explain your story. And I kind of idolize you a little bit now, because my brother looks up to you, and I was actually a little bit nervous before talking to you, because you're forget celebrities. you know, they don't really do fuck all for society, but what you've done is you've sacrificed your life for the greater good for so many people, and you won't understand that effect, or you won't know the actual effect of how many people's lives you've actually impacted. But, you know, I'm sure there's people all around the world that, you know, whether they know it or not, they have to thank you for, you know, for some of the stuff that you've done. So I thank you so much.
I try and speak to every single person on my Instagram. You know, my wife helps me, and we get together and we try and talk to every single one. Every single person that's got mental health issues, you know, or struggling. We've always reached out to them and said, look, you need to talk. And they've always talked to me, and I've always responded to them to give them strength, to give them courage, you know. But I thank you for letting me, you know, have this time on your show. You know, I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I honestly, it's been great, and there's so many people that I've spoken to about this that have been able, like, have said to me they can't wait to listen to this episode. So I thank you very much. When I'm back in England over the summer, I will definitely be calling you up and coming to meet you and taking you out for a beer to say thank you as well.
By all means, mate. By all means, always here.
All right, Craig. So before we go, where can people find you?
On Instagram, and also my Maverick school is mavericksurvival.com. It's on Google. If you just type it into the Google search, it'll pop up there. And also find me on my Instagram as well.
Yeah, I'll plug
Facebook.
Yeah, I'll put everything. I'll put all the links on the post, so everyone has and knows where to visit and stuff. But honestly, Craig, thank you so much. I'll let you go and enjoy the weekend now. And thank you very much for joining the Daniel Lees podcast. But before we go, listeners, I'm sure, I mean, that was probably up there with one of the best episodes I've ever recorded. So if you like what you hear, please share that. If someone you feel close to you will take benefit of listening to this podcast, this is why we do it. You know, we have no financial benefit from this podcast. We just do it to try and help others. So you spreading the word or giving us a 5-star rating or resharing it, whatever it may be, subscribing, just helps us get this story into a lot more people's ears. So again, thank you very much, Craig. And thank you very much for tuning in, listeners. We'll see you next week.